Today I want to talk a little bit about why you might care so much about getting in shape when it really doesn't even make sense to you. So a lot of times people will come to me and the first thing they say is, I really need help with fitness, or I really need help getting my health together. And then what's interesting is they'll sort of talk themselves down from there. They'll almost talk themselves out of needing help. In other words, they may come to me going, I know that I really need to do this, but it's not that bad. I'm not that out of shape. I'm not that unhealthy, or thoughts of being in better shape enter my mind, but I don't really let them take over my life. Like, it's just not that bad. And I think what's happening is you guys are actually feeling guilty for wanting to get in shape. And while you may be understanding that you're feeling guilty about it, you might not be understanding why. And here's what I think is going on. Because your career is probably not being a fitness coach or being a fitness model or a bodybuilder, it can be kind of hard to justify putting time, energy, effort, money into getting in shape. And then you may be over here scratching your head going, so why do I care so much about it? And I think what's going on is, it's not that fitness is relevant to your life, it's that being out of shape is irrelevant. If you haven't read the book Psycho-Cybernetics by Maxwell Maltz, you should. But even if you don't read it, I'll just tell you that there's a concept in the book which basically explains we are wired to live out and act based on our beliefs. So, in other words, what you believe of yourself determines the way that you act. And obviously your behaviors and your actions determine what your entire life looks like. So what I think is going on for you guys is when you look in the mirror, you can't help but get a message back from it. So if you look in the mirror and you see how many times you've fallen off the wagon, how many times you've failed at getting in the shape you want to be in, how many times you've tried but you still can't figure it out, essentially the message that is coming back at you from the mirror is failure. And whether you think you're absorbing it or not, that message is there in your head. Now, this wouldn't go for everyone, but for people who are truly top performers, high achievers, overachievers, if in general you're a badass and you really, really, really want the most out of life, then not being in better shape or not having the best health that you possibly could, that's gonna be something that bothers you. And it's also gonna be something that affects you. Because when the message you're getting back from the mirror is that you're a failure or you can't do it, whether you know it or not, you're gonna start acting in other areas of life based off of that belief. And then what can happen is whenever you do have a failure in some other part of life, that belief becomes confirmed. And then it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy where you may be stuck in a cycle of failure, believing that you're a failure, and therefore since you believe you're a failure, you fail again, and it just keeps happening and happening and happening. So I think that's one reason why it really bothers people. The other thing I think is happening is actually a psychological principle called cognitive dissonance. And even though this sounds like a really fancy word, what it's referring to is pretty much when you have two conflicting ideas, thoughts, or beliefs in your head, and they don't agree with each other and they're running into each other, causing you a lot of stress. So how this can relate to fitness and what you're seeing in the mirror is, if you're looking in the mirror and you're seeing that essentially the sum of what you're seeing is failure with getting in better shape or getting your health together, that's something that really upsets you, because who you really are as a person is probably someone who is very driven, strives to succeed, really gets the most out of life. You're on top of your stuff, and what you're seeing in the mirror doesn't match up with that. So that's why it's something that you are recognizing, hey, this thing doesn't belong in my life, and therefore the only way to get rid of that thing that doesn't belong is by figuring it out. So if you've ever sat there going, I don't even know why I spend so much time trying to figure this out, that's why. It's not that fitness is something that you want to become an expert in necessarily, but at the same time, to get rid of the thought that doesn't belong of I can't do it or I can't get into shape, you do have to understand how to be in good shape in a sustainable way. So not only does it make sense that it bothers you, but it also really makes sense to get serious about fixing whatever the fitness issue is so that you can look in the mirror and have the message be you are a success. If it gives you a little bit more clarity as to why you may have spent a million hours Googling how to get in shape, let me know. Give this video a thumbs up and I'll be on here again soon.